everyone, and welcome to our session today on all things automation. My name is Elise Corneal, and I'm going to be your moderator today. We are fortunate to have two experts and prominent automation authors on the topic of automation with us today. First, we have Rajendra Prasad, who we call RP. He's the co-author of the Automation Advantage, and it's a strategic and yet a practical guide for scaling intelligent automation in the enterprise. RP is also a senior managing director and global automation lead at Accenture. We also have Pascal Bornet, author of Intelligent Automation, and this is a guidebook on harnessing AI, not only to boost business, but also to make the world more human. And I think we can all use a lot of that today. Pascal is also the chief data officer of Era Technology. So today, RP and Pascal are here to share their experiences on how organizations can wield the ever increasingly sophisticated and advanced intelligent automation capabilities to drive broad and lasting enterprise transformation and, to Pascal's point, help humans transform too. So today, they're going to share some leadership tips on three things. First one, identify the best automation opportunities, sometimes harder than you'd think, right? Two, key steps to making a successful intelligent automation journey. And then three, how to address those commonly held myths, misconceptions, and even missteps that can often hinder you along the way. So as we go along, would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment or a question in the chat box, and we'll look to address those at the end of the session. All right, Pascal and RP, let's dig in. So first, I want to get into the secrets of intelligent automation success. And I want to start with a question about authorship. So I imagine many people on this call and with us today may have thought about writing a book, or we may have some authors with us today. So this is a question for both of you. And Pascal, I'd like to start with you. What motivated you to write the book?
I think first it's about sharing a passion, a conviction that we can make our world more human with technology in general and with intelligent automation in specific. Then it came as a necessity. I used to be a consultant, and so I used to work for EY, McKinsey, and my clients always ask the same question about intelligent automation, where can I start? What are the critical success factors? What are the use cases that I should start with, and how can I get it right in my company? And I was a bit lazy at that time. I was thinking, okay, let's put all this documentation into one place, and so that I was dreaming of coming to a client and being able to give a document. I was not thinking really about a book at that time.
Okay.
And say, okay, read it first during the weekend, and then we meet again on Monday, and we can go into more detail. And it started with this, and then I, through the research that I did, I really identified how intelligent automation goes beyond business and the capacity to, again, make our world more human. I also heard a lot of misconceptions, on the ground from people saying that, you don't need training to work with robotic process automation, for example, or intelligent automation will steal my job. And for all those reasons, really, I thought it was necessary to build a guide that helps to ensure all those points.
Yeah, I think the guidebook element you're talking about, I think, is really critical. And RP, I imagine you may have some shared inspiration here. What was your motivation?
Listen, thank you for the question, and thank you for being getting me on this event. Hello, everyone on the live event. This is RP here. I shared similar passion like the way Pascal mentioned, but I do have a small story to share. My co-author, Dr. Bhaskar Ghosh, and myself, we've been, designing, implementing automation for a long time. One evening we were, in a meeting, and we were thinking about all of the automation and experiences that we had for the last 6 to 7 years, and there are a lot of practical tips. And like Pascal mentioned, when we speak to the clients, we talk about a 0.1, 0.3, 0.7, but we said, how about putting all of that together and creating, writing a book. And I know that it takes a lot of effort and time. And we said, okay, let's start. And then that's how we started. And as in our book, the most important aspect of the book is a practical guide, and people can open the book at any page and see there are tips and tricks that they can take directly and implement in their organization about automation.
I love that, because for both of your books, I found that, right? Like, you dog earing, people are like leaving little Post-it notes to come back to that. I think it's great when a book can be that practical and almost modular, right? Like you can flip through. So I think both of your books offer that land anywhere and get those insights. Okay, so here's a different question. And I think we see this with any advancing technology or new technology. A lot of time is spent defining it, a lot of debate, a lot of energy, really healthy, right? Often. But let's just start off and start with you, RP. What is intelligent automation? Because there are lots of definitions out there, probably leads to some of the misconceptions Pascal mentioned. So what is it?
I think in a very simple terms, the way I defined it is intelligent automation is when you apply data and data-driven decision making and some bit of a cognitive and AI technologies on the top of it, then it becomes intelligent automation. I'm very inspired with Paul's Human Plus Machine book. When we read through that, the automation human element is very, very critical, going hand in hand together. And then that combined with data-driven decision making, some in tune towards building AI models, designing the models, helping organizations to make data-made decisions is very, very critical. So intelligent automation is very simply put, business aligned, data-driven, and combined with AI, leveraging human plus machine power to drive automation. That's at the top of what I call as the automation maturity pyramid is intelligent automation for me.
I love it. And Pascal, I see you nodding. Like, what would you add to that, or perhaps even debate? We're among friends.
Yeah, completely aligned with what RP just said. I mean, data with the decision-driven, focused around people. I mean, I like to say that intelligent automation is made by people for people. So that's a critical component. I would add probably that it's a combination of methods and technology. Okay, we often think that it is only technology, but it's a bit more than that in my view. It includes project management, change management, communications, and all those practices that we have around large transformations. The purpose is to automate end-to-end business processes, and I think that's something that is very important as well. And when we talk about technology, I like to come back to technologies that everyone has in mind. For example, computer vision that gives the capacity to the technology to see, to identify, to read. Natural language processing that gives the capacity to the technology to understand and to talk. Robotic process automation or intelligent workflows that help technology to execute actions and of course machine learning that helps to machines to think and learn. So by combining all those technologies together, we are able to automate the most complex end-to-end business processes. Basically, we create synergies. Those different technologies create like capabilities that help to automate the most complex use cases. For example, I think we all know an end-to-end process that is called procure to pay, which is about, any company in the world is using this. It's about procuring goods and services and finally paying them to the suppliers. In this long process, we start with the selection of vendors, which can be performed using machine learning, for example, based on the history of what we've done with those vendors, based on the ratings of those vendors, and so on, identify the best one for these products and for the needs of the company. Then it's about sending those orders, and here workflow platforms or robotic process automation can be used. Then it's about receiving and processing the invoices when the goods have been received and used. And here, natural language processing can be used to read those invoices and process them automatically in the systems. And finally, pay those vendors. And here we can use robotic process automation, as it is something that is quite transactional and repetitive. So as you can see, an end-to-end process can be fully automated using a combination of technologies, and again, working hand in hand with the people.
You know, I think that's a great use case, the procure to pay. It's not maybe our most exciting thing that we ever have, to do in the world, but very effective. So I want to ask you about what other opportunities to see? I can tell you're very passionate about this topic, right? Like what else gets you excited about the opportunities, either that are happening today or that ahead, either for business or people or both? And that's for you, Pascal.
I mean, something that is magic about intelligent automation is that it is available across functions and across industries. So there is no one industry or one function where intelligent automation can't bring benefits. And that's one of the reasons why at the end of the book, we've identified a library, we've put together a library of more than 500 use cases. Okay, so there is no reason why someone would say, I don't go with IA because I don't have potential benefits from it. And back to the benefits, what are those benefits?
Right.
I would start with probably business efficiency. Okay, so definitely you can improve efficiency by 20 to 60% based on our experience and research. Secondly, employee experience. And that's a very important one. It's about taking the mundane, repetitive tasks that all of us are doing on a day-to-day basis and being able to refocus ourselves on what really matters, what makes us human, basically. Yeah? So creativity, strategy, relationship with the others. Another key component, key benefit is customer experience, improvement of customer experience. And here being able to connect with our customers on 24/7, being able to collect all their needs and understand their needs better, manage their loyalty, and the other benefits that I've found out by researching the book are about saving lives. So we've identified the capacity of those technologies to save more than 10 million lives per year by supporting clinical trials, research, disease diagnosis, patient support, the capacity also to double our budget for health and for education by reallocating the money that we are losing today on accidents, mistakes, fraud. So as you can see, a lot of benefits, and I'm sure RP, you have much more to add to that.
Saving lives is awesome. I hadn't even thought about that one until I read that with you. 10 million, that's amazing. So RP, what would you add? Like, what are maybe your favorite cases of the ones you see that are most powerful?
I think Pascal covered, the breadth of implementation and the use cases where we can apply this, right? Starting from healthcare to manufacturing to travel and transportation to the financial institutions across the board, and including the government sector where we can apply automation use cases. And there are many benefits that when you apply automation, some of the benefits that Pascal mentioned, capacity, freeing up capacities, on a day-to-day basis so that we can focus on more, value-added actions that humans can do. But I think one of the critical business benefit that I would want to touch upon is automation helps to drive speed to market, at the same time improving the quality. Wow. Typically, if you look at cost, quality, speed, if you try to adjust one, the others gets impacted in a traditional process management philosophy. But this is the only place where when you implement automation, you can reduce the cost. At the same time, you can get to speed to market, and it impacts quality in a very positive way. So it actually moves all of the three parameters in a very positive direction together. In other change processes, if you impact one, others may impact in the other way, the other direction. So that's one of the cohesive benefit that automation can deliver to. And to the example that Pascal took about saving humans' life, right? There's a lot of that happens primarily because your quality of analysis, speed at which you can perform healthcare data analysis and provide you insights using AI and machine learning can provide for payers and providers, gives you, a single pane of glass, a lot of information that they can make critical life-saving decisions using automation. And another example is today every enterprise focuses on sustainability, measuring and identifying automation enablers to drive sustainability and impacting the entire environment and human benefits and reducing the global warming. All of that can be also influenced through implementing automation.
And just to touch on that a little bit further, because I think that's a really important point where a lot of us are talking in the tech industry, right, about green by design, right, with tech, like sustainable by design from the beginning. RPU, especially sustainability, you're touching on the fact that intelligent automation can play a role in helping drive that. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Significantly, it can help to enterprises to identify what should be the cloud transformation capabilities, code, green code that you talked about, the entire environment in which, the ecosystem and the environment in which your technology, IT systems operate, the resources that are consumed from the power to water to, everything you can do and baseline your current capabilities using intelligent automation. When you capture a lot of data that can provide you significant insights to establish roadmap on how we can, drive entire enterprise sustainability index in a very, very positive space.
I think that's the ESG agenda, right, is on the minds of leaders today. And it ties back to that human transformation, that responsibility that we have. So let's turn to how do you get started, right? You both touched on that at the beginning, and yet certainly throughout your book. And RP, maybe we start with you. For someone that maybe is just not sure where in the enterprise to focus or which use case to start with, what would you advise?
I think it's a very important question. I always say that I used to work with Watts Humphrey, who is the process guru in the industry. He used to say, if you don't know where you are on a map won't help you. So it's that quote always resonates to me, because any change program that we do in the organization, be it automation, it's very important to kind of baseline where you are in the journey. So for intelligent automation, the step one is to assess and baseline the current automation landscape. Then you go through step by step to approach what I call as automation maturity. You start with foundational automation, then you go into optimization, then you get into efficiency through robotic process automation. And then while you are doing this, you start capturing the data. And the data becomes the foundation, and data-driven decision making, as I said, will become foundation for the highest level, which is intelligent automation. So that's how you do the automation journey. So you need to baseline where you are, you go through the automation maturity, and you put up a plan. In all of this, one of the very important element is to look at the current business processes. Okay. If the current business processes are chaotic and ad hoc in nature, it is very important to streamline the process first, get the process right. The reason is, if you automate an inefficient process, you just fuel your inefficiency run more efficiently. So you just need to make sure that you get the process optimization before you add automation layer on the top of it, so that you can avoid, the inefficiency that it can infuse into the efficiency journey of automation. So baseline, put up a maturity plan, get the process right is the way I summarize where to start with automation.
It's great. Pascal, what are the headlines for you, right? What do you tell folks when they're just trying to stumble around that map that RP mentioned?
Yes, I mean, I say the same thing as RP.
Okay.
and I like your point. I really liked your 2 points. The map point, which is, I wrote it down. I'm sure I'm going to use it in the future. And garbage in, garbage out. You need to redesign first the processes before automating them. Otherwise, you just have a garbage automated process, which is useless. And I want to come back on a few critical success factors that need to be in the mind of people who will start those transformations. We talked about people first. I won't come back to that. I mean, key points here are education, change management, information, incentivization, empowerment of the people is critical. Okay, people in the center. Second one is the tone from the top. I think I've never seen a intelligent automation projects succeed without a strong sponsorship. I think it's even more than sponsorship. It's involvement from the management. Okay, those transformations are structural and they have impact across processes, IT, people, and so you need the highest involvement of the C-levels. Third point is about start with decisions. I liked your point, RP, that you built at the beginning. Decisions are really the cornerstone of end-to-end processes. If we go back to my non-sexy example of the procure to pay, when you have
sorry, I just had to tip you.
but which is universal. That's great. Yeah. Every company can understand that. When you, I mean, the key decisions that you have to make, for example, in this end-to-end process, is whether you will pay or not an invoice from a supplier. And as you can see, that's really a cornerstone. In order to take this decision, you will need some data. So you need some information about what has been delivered, what was in the purchase order, what the quality of what was delivered, and is the price and the quantity the same as what was ordered at the beginning, for example. So you need all this information, and you're able to identify that you need this data because you know which decision you need to make. Okay. And very often, all those projects that we are launching have issues of identifying the right data. Okay, so that's thanks to this decision, you can understand which data you need and focus on this data, getting the right data. And finally, out of this decision, you will either accept or reject. Okay, and those are clearly two variants of the same process. If you reject, you will send an email to the supplier and ask for something. If you accept, then you go into the payment. Okay, so those two paths are very different, and help you to understand what needs to be automated for each of those two variants. The two last critical success factors, democratization. So leveraging some user-friendly technologies that are accessible to everyone in the company with minimum coding or programming experience. This is critical because you empower everyone in the company to participate in the transformation. And when you do this, not only you have more hands working on the transformation, so you go faster and broader, but most importantly, you change the mindset of the people in the company, because when everyone is empowered to act, the ownership of the transformation and the capacity to participate and influence this transformation is higher. Those are the critical success factors that I identified as most impactful.
Yeah, I like your points, because this is how you get to that transformation, right? Right. The decision, like knowing where you want to go. I think that's actually quite practical, but also strategic, right? Because I think a lot of people struggle to say, I've done part of it, but how do I make sure it has that big impact? Let's move to what everybody's kind of favorite part of watching webcasts is the Mythbusters, right? Like the Mythbusters section. So why don't we kind of end on that? One of the questions that came in from our audience today was concerns with intelligent automation and responsible AI. I think there's some realities there, and there are also some myths that probably need to be addressed. So RP, why don't I put you on the spot, right? Like what's the real here, and then we'll go to Pascal to tell us what his perspective is.
I think, you are absolutely right, Elise. There is some reality in terms of making sure that, the bias in the data is addressed, the data compliance and security needs are addressed, and the models are tested and trained to kind of replicate the real world and, provide sensitive information in a very, very right and accurate manner. So there are many elements, right? Accuracy, relevance, responsibility, and making sure that, that the data is accurate. It's the most important thing in any of the intelligent automation, even on AI, right? The way I say is that AI is nothing but an UI for the data. So the data plays a critical role in driving AI, thereby driving intelligent automation. So I think it is very important across the globe. There's a lot of research going on in terms of addressing aspects that we need to consider. And this is another area where we can even automate some of the aspects of responsible AI competence. I'll just give you a simple example, right? There are 10 expectations that we need to make sure that the data is sufficient for delivering a right AI model. We can test the accuracy of the data and the readiness for responsibility using an automated enabler. And that's what, we kind of test it out to make sure that you can implement, establish responsible AI using automation as a capability.
It's awesome. I hadn't thought about it that way. I hadn't thought about having responsible automation ensure responsible automation. So I like that little brain conundrum there. Pascal, what common myths do you see? And there's also a lot of chatter about jobs, and that's, particularly ebbs and flows with economic times. So is that something that you have a perspective on, or any other myths that you encounter when you have conversations?
Yeah, I think it's very important to talk about the job aspect and basically the impact of automation on jobs. Because this has been, it's not something new. A few centuries ago, manufacturing got automated as well, with those big machines, physical robots. And we had the same thing. We had the same discussions, which are completely normal. And we had the Lilith at that time that were, discussing the point that those robots would replace us and that we would be out of jobs. And again, those fears are completely normal because work is an important part of our lives, mm-hmm. and the fact to hear that those technologies are able to perform some of those activities that we are doing currently can be a bit scary. Now let's go back to the facts. And so what happened 200 years ago? People were scared as well. And finally, what we've seen is that new jobs, so certainly new job tasks. Old job tasks have been automated by machines, but new job tasks have appeared. And the thing is, we don't know what those tasks are, those future new tasks are. And I usually give the example of Uber drivers. Nobody would have guessed 10 years ago that our world would count more than 3 million Uber drivers today. Okay, because those are the limits of our imagination. Right. So, and I would say all economists. You can talk about Keynes, you can talk about all the other very famous economists will tell you the same thing. When a new technology is coming in, it definitely takes part of the jobs that are being done today, but much new ones are being created. The issue is we don't know which one yet. We have some hints here and there about what new jobs in ethics, for example, just discussed. But a very important discussion around this topic.
Then why don't we squeeze in one last question, and that is kind of tied to what you were saying, Pascal, and that's all about skills. So it's a hot job market. We all know that. You talked about like the jobs we don't even know are going to happen. So I'll start with you first, but just rapid fire, like what would you advise someone who's looking to start a career in intelligent automation, right? What kind of skills would you say they should focus on? And then RP, I'll let you close us out with your advice on that too. We have a few people that are interested in a career in this. You've inspired them.
Yeah, I think the first skill is about digital literacy. Okay, so basically knowing which information to find where, to understand what are those new technologies, what are the benefits they are bringing, and how to control and implement them. That's one thing. Second is to be able to master this well. You need to know well how to learn, and we know that those technologies are coming at an increasing pace. New technologies are coming at an increasing pace. So we need to develop the capacity to learn quickly how to use those technologies. So the capacity to learn how to learn is something, I mean, there are a few books on the topic. Is a skill, really a skill of the future, I think.
That curiosity about learning, I think you both share obviously as authors, right? And I think that applies a lot across so many domains, but particularly in this one, as fast as it's moving. RP, you want to take us home with some last thoughts, and then we'll thank everyone.
Thank you. And I think the most important thing, Elias, is there are three key components that impact the digital literacy and automation that Pascal talked about. I call it as cloud is the enabler, data is the driver, and AI is the differentiator. So if people can, start learning cloud, data, and AI, and that should help build the components that are required to become intelligent automation expert.
This is awesome. Well, I know my brain is full. I think we've covered a whole landscape, but this has been recorded. Have it for your listening repleasure and replay so you can keep learning from these experts. And if you haven't read their books, please do. You're going to walk away even more inspired. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. I knew Pascal would show for us. So if you haven't dug in and read these, seriously, I really encourage you to do so. I had so much fun, RP and Pascal. Shall we do it again sometime? Have people join us again?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Thanks everyone. Thanks. Have a great day.